What's up, sons? It's Blind Rod with Sonofatech once again, and today we have yet another talking head video. Today we're going to be talking about the problem with Ethereum. This is an opinion piece that was posted on the medium.com website, where you can anybody can post, and it was by the author Tomer Strolight. It brings up some very interesting points for discussion, and yes, you can say this is clickbait because obviously it is, but I think it's important whether you are a miner or an investor or even a dev to go ahead and understand this point of view. It brings to light some very interesting things that you should be aware of before you invest into the ecosystem. We're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor. Today's sponsor is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journey. Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring classes for creatives and curious people alike on topics including illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and even cryptocurrency. As a content creator and cryptocurrency enthusiast, Skillshare offers me the tools to sharpen my videography skills with classes like Video on a Budget, Prepare for Your Shoot Without Breaking the Bank, and Accounting 101, Accounting Rules for Crypto and Bitcoin. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads and they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free premium trial so you can explore your creativity. Welcome back. So like I said, this is a talking head video and this is an opinion piece. Your opinions may differ and you should let us know why in the comment section below. All right, so let's go ahead and hop right into it. And here, as you can see, it's called The Problem with Ethereum. And it goes on to say, well, people ask me, can you explain why you dislike Ethereum and recommend against buying or holding it? And here's his explanation. So this explanation will be linked, of course, in the description below, and definitely go check it out because it's important that you read the entire thing to get the full gist of it. However, we're just going to go ahead and hit the bullet points here. And he goes on to essentially explain that there are multiple classes within the Ethereum ecosystem. And so he basically presents it like this, and it's imagine starting a new community. Let's go ahead and call the community Ethereum in this case. And then a number of promises will be made to encourage people to join this community. There will be a number of different roles in this community, and the roles are as follows. The working class, which are the miners, myself, probably most of you included, the GPU miners, even the ASIC miners. And then you have the wealthy class, the group that participates in the founding. Let's call this group the initial coin offering participants. If you guys aren't aware, Ethereum was one of the first to basically run an ICO, and that's short for initial coin offering. And what that allowed was for people to invest in the project early on to basically set up capital or funds for development. And then there will be a ruling class, and that's a group that makes the rules, and this is the core developers. This is a subset of the wealthy class, of course. And so you're talking about Vitalik Buterin and of course anybody else on the core dev team. And there will also be a class that are subjects of the rules and the results of the work. This last will be the most numerous. We'll call this group the Ethereans. So that's the people that maybe you don't mind. Maybe you didn't get in on the initial coin offering, and maybe you're not a developer, but you're invested in Ethereum, or you're utilizing the Ethereum blockchain to trade NFTs or trade tokens, add liquidity to different tokens, etc. Right? So that would be your group, right? And in my groups, I'm going to be looking at it from the perspective of a miner, right? Because that's what I am. So now when this new community is constituted, certain promises are made. One of the promises made is that the need for the working class, the miners, will go away at some point in the near future. This promise is even enforced by a rule that makes work impossible after a time. This is Ethereum's promise of a switch from proof of work to proof of stake. Now, we've talked about proof of work and proof of stake and the merge happening, of course, at the end of this year or the beginning of 2022 in Q1. And that's basically where essentially the working class will be kind of phased out, enforced by a rule called the difficulty bomb, which would bring about an ice age. So this is something important to note, because a lot of people get confused about the difficulty bomb and why they keep getting defused. The initial intention, at least if we're looking at the opinion piece here, and by most people's understanding from the beginning of Ethereum, was that the difficulty bomb was put in place to basically force this move away from proof of work, right? So seeing that they keep diffusing it is part of the issue that this particular opinion piece, addresses. So another promise is made that the computer code in this community is its code, is its law. So code is law. Everything that's been developed, all the code that's been put into Ethereum, that is the law. Nothing else is the law. Everything must be done on chain within the code. All right. So a mistake occurs. Now, for everybody here, this will be maybe a little bit of a history lesson. So now it so happens that early on a mistake is made and a lot of wealthy class money risks being lost. So we're talking about core developers and of course the ICO investors, or the initial coin offering investors. This is the infamous case of the DAO. So if you guys hadn't heard of that, this is basically the event that people are referring to when they talk about the DAO. It was a smart contract that raised 150 million worth of ETH from its early investors, and which was hacked to have most of its money drained by the hacker. Excuses are made and explanations are given to why in this particular case an exception needs to be made to the code is law promise. But this exception would be a one-off. Now, this is when, of course, you saw the hard fork and a fork that turned into what is now known as Ethereum Classic. You see, because a certain portion of the community, or Ethereans or whatever, right, miners, the working class, thought that this was against the original code is law, they went ahead and forked off into Ethereum Classic. And this, of course, was, splintered the community, and Ethereum went on to go ahead and make the changes. So in the Ethereum community, the ruling class enacts new rules, a hard fork, to undo the mistake. The wealthy class gets all their money back and are granted an exemption from the enforcement of the law of code is law for this one instance. Okay. And that's pretty much was the history lesson for you guys of why Ethereum Classic is a thing and what was going on there. It is also a lesson to let you guys understand that essentially the idea that code is law, or the idea that nothing can be reversed on the blockchain, at least in the specific Ethereum community, is false. They can basically change it and do whatever they want at any time, create a hard fork, and basically break anything that break the law, basically. So the ruling class has an idea. All right, so one of the promises made when the community was constituted was that the working class would be paid 5 units of currency for each unit of work they completed. That is the 5 ETH per block. But the ruling class now feels that's too much because it amounts to a lot of value for the work. So the ruling class changes the rule of 5 ETH per block to 4 ETH per block. This reduces, of course, the compensation to the working class by 20%. And this, of course, goes on. You'll see that as we go through this article. So there's a couple different ways that you can set this up. If they wanted this to be in the code, and the code is the law, then you would do something along the lines of Ravencoin, or Bitcoin would be the most famous, where you have a scheduled halving. And then that way, the working class that is participating can plan accordingly to this. My understanding is this is not how ETH was developed in the beginning, and therefore it breaks the whole kind of, I guess, ideals of the particular blockchain. So some people, particularly those in the working class, complain. They are told that they can take this pay cut or leave and go work someplace else. The work is still profitable, more profitable than any other coin out, right? That's the position we're kind of in now. And so pretty much everybody remains mining Ethereum. Now, it is not just the ruling class alone that issue this ultimatum of take the pay cut or leave. Most everyone else in both the wealthy class and the class of the subjects, which are the Ethereans, remember, likes the change too. Why? This change reduces the creation of new currency units that they weren't themselves earning because they weren't doing any work. Thus, it gives them a larger share of the total monetary pie after the change than they would have had if the change didn't take place. No moral questions are seriously considered about whether changing this rule is a breach of the promise made at the time of the constitution of the community. So we all know that that change was made. Guess what? Keeps going on. Time passes. In fact, the time of detonation for the difficulty bomb, which would lead to an ice age, is drawing near. If the bomb is activated, the work would become impossible and the entire community would come to a halt, a screeching halt, right? The ruling class, however, has failed to engineer the rules that would deliver on their promise. That is activating, of course, proof of stake. The ruling class proposes a solution. The solution does not include them sacrificing their wealth as punishment for failing to have delivered on their promise. The solution also does not remove the difficulty bomb from the code base. The solution only delays the difficulty bomb. By delaying the difficulty bomb, we reaffirm our promise to deliver proof of stake by creating another deadline for ourselves through the postponement of the Ice Age. Some people accept this statement at face value, others have doubts, right? So what if the deadline is missed again? Won't you just delay the difficulty bomb again? Guess what? That does seem to be what's been happening. They are given the now becoming usual ultimatum: if you don't like it, leave. All right, so time passes more and we get another pay cut for the working class. The working class has their pay reduced from 4 Ethereum to 3 Ethereum per block, which is a 25% pay cut. Miners now earn 40% less per block than at the time of the community's constitution, which promised that code was law and which the ruling class later said they would break only once. But the code is law promise has now been broken so many times, people expect it to occur at regular intervals. The deadline is missed again for proof of stake, and no penalty is paid by the ruling class for missing it again. That reduction of the working class's earnings is what pays for pacifying the class of subjects who are starting to make demands of the ruling class to deliver on their promise. The ruling class is happy to make a sacrifice of the working class's money. So this is what a lot of people need to understand, because we always get into this position of miners versus investors. And basically what happens is the core devs are telling you guys as investors that it's all our fault. All the miners are greedy. Miners are greedy. Miners just want more money. They're so greedy, they're terrible. Meanwhile, they're sitting on, their entire ICO that is worth more than pretty much the rest of the ETH within the ecosystem, right? I think it was something like 77 million, which was a significant amount, quite a bit more than, has come through emissions. So this is what you need to understand is, like, as an investor, you're seeing this, and yes, it does increase your, I guess, the price of your particular Ethereum at the detriment of the miners, not at the detriment of the ruling class, who has also been breaking the promises. That's what this opinion piece is trying to highlight here. All right, so the wealthy class and the class of subjects accepts this. Yeah, so we already went over that. So is it right for the workers in our community to pay the price for the failings of the rulers? That's the question he asks here. So something here seems awfully similar to the system that cryptocurrency was meant to fix. It was meant to eliminate rulers. It was meant to make everyone accountable for their actions. It was meant to reward the intelligent, the hardworking, and the capable, and not reward the incompetent or the makers yet breakers of promises. However, this repeat of the broken old system seems to be playing out again. So we finally get in. I believe this is where we start talking about EIP 1559. So progress towards proof of stake, the promise that the system will work with no work, is much slower than originally expected. The ruling class assures the other classes that progress is happening. They launch a partial solution to pacify the other classes. Oh, this is talking about the beacon chain. Okay, cool. So I forgot about this part. They launch a partial solution to pacify the other classes. This pacification solution pays people to stake their coins, but does not do away with the dependency on proof of work. Paying for stake is welcomed by the wealthy class. It is, after all, getting paid for being wealthy. So why would they object? And this is the other thing that we need to talk about. We talked about it in yesterday's video with, of course, Jay talking about, he had this weird idea, and this is the narrative that the core devs are giving us, right? Which is like, oh, well, we'll get rid of the miners because otherwise they're going to control everything. And then regular people will be able to get into the process of validating the transactions on the blockchain. When in reality, as we know it, you need to have 32 ETH to go ahead and stake. Who is going to have the most of that 32 ETH to stake? The ruling class, right? The class that has been in the ICO because they purchased 77 million in the beginning. They're gonna have it. Who's not going to be able to get into it anymore? The people that are just, working the 9-to-5 day jobs trying to get by. They're not going to have the 80 to 100 grand, depending on the price of Ethereum at this point, to invest in a stake. Now, there are things known as staking pools, which should lower the barrier to entry. Of course, staking pools will work like mining pools. The more that you have, the more that you will make within that pool. Additionally, due to some technical limitations with, of course, Ethereum and the staking pools, what has been found is that they are not that secure, and there are risks to your private keys when participating in them. This may change in the future, and hopefully that change is before the merge, in my humble opinion, but I highly doubt it as well, because that doesn't seem to be the focus. All right, so it goes on. However, it's just that, so under this new arrangement, work is still needed, blah, blah, blah. We got on with that, right? With everybody getting paid now in newly issued units, right, on the beacon chain, everyone except for the poorer people in the class of subjects, concerns about inflation arise. So this is where we were talking about, like, we've talked about EIP 1559 making it ETH deflationary, right? Well, it technically would only make the proof of work portion of ETH deflationary. What they did prior to that made it inflationary. So when we get into EIP 1559 and the reasoning, what this article is exposing, right, what this opinion piece is exposing, is that it was basically a solution to protect the stakers within the beacon chain from inflation. There are no actual delivery dates for the end of proof of work, and if there were, nobody would believe them now anyways. I like that line, right? It's funny. There's no concern about a difficulty bomb, which nobody cares about anymore because they already know that it would just get delayed again if it did kick in, which of course they've talked about and done recently, right? So yeah, cool, we get it. And everyone knows that the ruling class will not be held accountable. So the ruling class proposes a solution because of the inflation. It's one that has worked before. Cut the pay of the working class yet again. These are the miners, right? The ruling class proposes that a portion of the working class's fees be burned. By burning the working class's money, the ruling class and the wealthy class end up with a larger piece of the overall pie. It's ingenious, evil, but ingenious. We've been talking about EIP 1559 for a long time. There has been people that have been very upset with it from the miners' perspective, right? And I think that hopefully if you guys are coming from this as an investor in Ethereum, that you understand what's going on with the miners. Here's the deal. As miners, what we do is we invest in hardware. We maintain the hardware. We pay for the power to run the hardware. And in return, we get a portion of Ethereum to basically cover our costs. And we expect to be paid in Ethereum, and the price of Ethereum is irrelevant if we are talking about compensation, because at that point, right, the ruling class already has so much Ethereum, or the core devs and the ICO investors, that like for us to transact and help facilitate them move it around and add it into whatever funds that they see fit, we just want to be compensated for it. And when there was a problem, the blame always went to the miners. And so the frustration is basically all written out here. I don't even think that I need to have much commentary on this. I hope that it's adding some perspective for some people that always want to jump down the miners' throats, right? Oh man. So the ruling class turns out to be better at delivering narratives with cool names like Ice Age and World Computer than they are at delivering actual code that corresponds with their promises. They do not disappoint in that regard. They call the burning of the working class's earnings ultrasound money, as a great sounding term, combining sound money, being good with money that made a distinctive sound you could hear when the money was bounced on a table, and the word ultrasound being sounds you can't hear. Well, it sounds better when you don't analyze it this way. Like everything in Ethereum, it sounds better when you don't analyze it at all. So he goes on, he says, we have a community where the ruling class has failed to deliver on their promises time and time again. We have a community where those who do the work have been made to pay time and time again for those who do not work. We have a ruling class whose solutions to every problem, even if it is them that caused the problem, never involve them owning up or paying any price for the solution. We have the complicity in the classes that benefit from the decisions of the ruling class at the expense of the working class. And he does follow that up with, of course, does this sound familiar? Does this sound familiar? And what he's getting at here is the traditional fiat currency, right? The ruling class controls it. If they want to print more, they can print more. If they need to decrease on, of course, inflation or whatever it is, they put that onto the working class, who then needs to pay more and more and more and more taxes, and basically end up draining the working class dry while keeping themselves all nice and pretty at the top. What was the point of Bitcoin from the beginning? What are the principles? Read the white papers. Understand cryptocurrency from that perspective. Now, in defense of Ethereum, Ethereum is not necessarily a currency, or at least that's not its only purpose. It is also meant to be enable people to develop within the blockchain or on top of the blockchain. The problem here is that it was going to adhere to kind of both the principles of Bitcoin, as well as adding this new feature on top of it. And as stated in the opinion article that I'll clarify once again, and these are my opinions as well, I think I do share them at this point, they did not adhere to those rules. Now, we've seen it over and over again, so why are we still mining Ethereum? And why is it still a thing? Well, it's still the most used programmable blockchain out, therefore increasing the price of Ethereum, which thereby increases the compensation to the miners. And so no matter what, if the miners are more profitable as a miner, we need to basically be able to cover our costs and try to be as profitable as possible. But this cycle is no different than what we see within traditional fiat currency, and that is what this is pointing out. I hope that this was enlightening for people that are purchasing and investing in Ethereum. I think it was. The link to this article will be down below. I think Tomer did a great job, and so thanks, Tomer. I know I read a lot of this, but I felt like it really needed to be done. There's more to it though, so go through and read it all, understand the concepts, and then decide on what you think about it, right? Now, I've been getting the questions, of course, are Ravencoin and Ergo going to flip Ethereum in profitability for GPU mining? And yes, that is looking to be the case here due to EIP 1559. That being said, EIP 1559 is wildly unpredictable. And that is basically due to the movement of that base fee that gets burned. And if the fee cap is close to the base fee, a majority of that block gets burned, and then it'll reset and go. So from a miner's perspective, you're all over the place on profitability calculations all the time. And so it's very hard to determine exactly how much you think you should be getting. Another thing about it is, like, frankly, it didn't fix the fees. And people are saying, I think the joke was, yeah, the fees are more predictably high. And I agree. NFTs, I feel like I can't even do anything on. If I buy an NFT or sell an NFT, over 50% of it on a good day goes into fees. And the miners that are mining are not getting compensated properly, and it's burning. So the ruling class just gets to gather up more of the pie. What does this mean though too, right? So a lot of people are like, well, is the merge coming? You know, another thing in the video we talked about yesterday with Jay's 2 cents is he had stated something along the lines of basically the merge happening at the end of this year. I can say pretty safely that I don't think that's going to happen. It's already August. We don't really have any word. I'll have to double check. Stay tuned to the channel. Hit the like, comment, subscribe, and notification bell to be notified when we get more news about it. But I am leaning more towards Q1 of 2022, or even towards the end of Q1 of 2022 before the merge happens. And we'll just have to see how it goes from there. If it doesn't happen, you can probably bet that they will be reducing the block reward or finding another way to reduce the payouts to the working class, provided it doesn't put them too below, of course, the profitability to where too many people would move off of it. But you have to keep in mind that there are Ethereum ASICs that are out that will compensate for the GPU miners going away. And there are ASICs that had supported EIP 1559, and I assume there's stuff going on there that will maintain that. So thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, like I said earlier, and I will see you next Tuesday. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to see more. Also, you can check out this playlist for more content talking about cryptocurrency.